All right, what a great garden story that was, and we have an even better one for you now because we're joined by Bree Arthur, and she is the author of The Foodscape Revolution. And thank you so much for being on Central Texas Gardener.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a great book. This combination of food and ornamental gardening is really hot right now. Who did you write the book for?
Well, my goal is to engage as many people as possible. You know, I want every demographic, every race, every religion, every age to enjoy the value of gardening. And vegetables are kind of the root of getting people interested in growing plants.
And I have to say, the book is terrific. It really so beautifully illustrates how you can do this. And that, to me, is the strength of the book. It's not just pictures of these amazing gardens, the hybrid gardens, if you will, but it actually walks people through how to do it. What do you think is the most important lesson that people need to incorporate if they're going to get started creating a foodscape?
I think an important part of the book is to really give people confidence to try to grow crops and to grow plants in a meaningful way so that they can maybe not have to buy garlic from the grocery store. You know, every landscape offers an opportunity to grow something in a unique fashion and in a meaningful way so that you can harvest a lot and use it every day in your kitchen.
How did you get interested in this topic?
I am so lucky. Rosalind Creasy, who is the pioneer of the edible landscaping movement, is a longtime friend and mentor. And I'm really taking what she has started in the 70s and 80s and 90s and just trying to carry that torch to a new generation and keep that momentum going and keep getting information out to many people.
Yeah, and there are many benefits I could think of for the families that are engaged in this, but there's also kind of like a social or communal benefit to it, right?
Well, there is, and we're living in an era where we need to encourage people to spend a little bit of time off of their iPhones. And so to have your neighbors out and you interact and you share produce and, you know, especially engaging the children of the world today. So I think if we get every 8-year-old introduced to the joys of gardening, we will have a generation of gardeners 20 years from now.
One of the tips that you have in the book, and I think this is really wise, is you talk about zones for planting plants. And I think this is really important for a lot of folks because when you first dive in, sometimes you just go wild, really. You start planting things everywhere, but then you start realizing perhaps you've overreached a bit.
Well, and that seems to be one of the big problems with people who don't have a lot of experience gardening. And the zones are really there to help indicate how much maintenance and how much water a particular edible is going to need. So I grew up with the idea that your vegetables were segregated in the box in the far corners of your backyard. It's the least convenient place to have your food crops. They need to be located close to the hose so that you can water them if they're dry and you notice when the produce is ready to be harvested. And so the zones are there to help give you a basis for understanding where tomatoes or peppers or eggplants should be in contrast to more drought tolerant things like peanuts or grains.
I think the wisdom of just bringing the food crops in close makes a lot of sense, in part because you're not the only one who likes to eat them, and it's good to keep an eye on them.
Well, that's true. And by incorporating them in your ornamental landscape, you're really helping increase the biological diversity. So you end up reducing a lot of the disease and insect pressures that you would have when you otherwise plant them out in a row like a mini farmer. I love to tell people, you're not a farmer, you don't use a combine, you don't have to plant your vegetables in a straight line. Celebrate the fact that they're beautiful and they can be mingled with all of your other favorite plants.
And you know, the competitors I was thinking about were squirrels and raccoons.
Well, and you know, the mammal dynamic of gardening is a never-ending challenge. But you know, there are some really great crops that you can grow to help deter those mammals. So I often recommend that people grow mycrete basil, the dwarf basil. And you know, bunny rabbits in particular don't like the way that tastes. So it helps keep them out of the rest of your landscape.
So interplanting some strong tasting things that the animals find unpleasant makes a lot of sense. And you can actually make edibles a centerpiece of the garden too. and not just up close, but as centerpiece. And there's one particular space in the book that you have, which is, I guess it was a fire pit that was no longer used, but it becomes this incredible focal point.
Well, and it's funny because we do use that fire pit, but we have a cover for it. The cover gets planted, and for the majority of the year, when we're not having fires,
Right.
it looks like fire because it's seeded celosia.
Right.
And so it emulates the
Right.
idea that that is a fire pit.
Right, with the flame-like flowers of the celosia.
Exactly, and I love to put permanent or perennial edibles surrounding the fire pit to encourage people to go out and interact in the space, whether they're going to have, a marshmallow roast or not.
Right.
So things like blueberries and strawberries as ground covers, figs, asparagus, grape arbors, any of that
Right.
can really be grown in conjunction.
Well, the another thing that you do in the book that I think is super cool is the use of grains like corn, en masse. It reminds me of decades ago, people were talking about the new American garden, and they were encouraging mass plantings of grass and ornamentals, and it kind of emulates that in a way.
Well, that was exactly where this came from. And this was
really?
another suggestion from Rosalind. I had this bed in the middle of my front yard that was full of a native grass for North Carolina.
Right.
And in a wet winter, they all died. And I was debating on what to replace it with. And she said, just try growing wheat. You'll get the same visual effect, but at the end of the season, you can eat it.
Yeah.
And for me, that was an incredible aha moment. And from there, I've indulged in every grain that I can get my hands on. And I'm finding incredible gratification in that many of these are cool season crops. So
Right.
they grow during a time when everything else is sort of boring and dormant.
Right.
So I hope one day that my legacy as the crazy grain lady will be that it's perfectly normal to have wheat and barley and cane sorghum and rice.
One thing you do as well is you have cool season, warm season tips for everybody. And I think that's really useful because this is a very, changing, fluid kind of garden.
Well, it is. And, no matter where you are in the world, you typically have some seasonality.
Sure.
And to write a book, you want it to be as well applied as possible, regardless of the zones or the regions that people are growing in. And so distinguishing it by cool season and warm season, in theory, is going to make it so people are looking at plants less from a hardiness zone, but more thinking of a temperature and a soil temperature relationship.
You also, at the end of the book, you reference that you're growing these grains and all these other kinds of plants. You also have tips for how to use them.
I do. And
Right.
I love to be able to bring in that yard to table component because I think that's what the common American landscape is missing. We're not designing for this interaction. And that's really what people are craving today, an authentic experience from something that's kind of ordinary. And so being able to apply what you've grown in your foundation landscape and throw a dinner party with it is an accomplishment.
And also, there's an emphasis on creating structure by using evergreens. I think that's very wise.
Well, my background is in ornamental horticulture, and too often people disregard the value and importance that flowering trees, shrubs, perennials offer. I really want people to understand that edibles and ornamentals belong mingled together, and that having that ornamental framework will make your landscape look so much better 12 months out of the year.
Bree, you are genuinely, I think, on the edge of a kind of a garden revolution here, and the book is a great success, and we really appreciate you being a part of our program. Do you have a website associated with the book?
I do. You can visit me at breegrows.com.
All right.
And you can follow me on Instagram. I'm Bree the Plant Lady.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks for being our plant lady today. We really appreciate it. Best wishes to you and the Foodscape Revolution.
Thank you so much for this hospitality.
Okay, coming up next is our friend Daphne.